So, good morning, all. So, today we are going to study QSAR and drug design, which is a part of your syllabus. So, as you see in this diagram, you've got some chemical reactions going on, compounds, and you're trying to do the biological activity, which is your normal method of doing. But what is this QSAR? So, in QSAR, what you do, you design your new compounds in your computer and try to see its interaction and then its physical chemical properties, and you select so many compounds and then you synthesize. So this is a reverse synthesis. So QSR is a reverse synthesis where you design a structure in the computer, so find its interaction through a computational model. That's why it is called in silico method. In means silicon within the computer. In silico design, that is known as in silico design. Why it is called in silico design? Because it is designed in a computer rather than in a lab. It is designed in a computer, so it is also called as in silico design. So what happens in your normal thing, your compounds are synthesized in your reaction vessels, whereas in QSAR your compounds are designed in a computer. So that's the difference. And once the new compounds are set, then they are looked for the synthesize and check for the biological activity. So let's go into this. So qualitative. So what is this QSAR? This is quantitative structural activity relations. It's a quantitative, means it quantifies how much the activity is. It's a and how it is related to the structure. How your biological activity is related to the structure is quantified through mathematical equation. So what is structure activity relationships are usually determined by making minor changes. By making some small minor changes in the structure of your lead to produce analogs and assessing their effect of these structural changes on the biological, that is structural activity. So what do? You get a lead compound. Okay, you get a lead compound and you produce analogs. What do you make? What do you mean by analogs? Compounds which are similar to your lead by making a minor structural changes. So let us consider, okay, we have got an amide in the structure. That amide you convert it into sulfonamide, carboxylic acid. Such type of changes you will do. So let us another modification in the ring. Let us say it is containing a nitro. Instead of nitro, which is an electron withdrawing group, you put a CF3 group, which is also a good electron withdrawing group. So such structural modification you try to do it and try to see the effect on the biological activity. This is known as structural activity relationship. That is, when we make minor changes in the structure of the lead compound, when we make minor changes in the lead compound, then we get new compounds with better, or if you'll come to know whether the compound is active or not, whether that particular substitution will have any effect or not, we'll come to know through structural activity. The compounds with similar structures to the pharmacologically active drug are often themselves biologically active. So that is no, that if you so like morphine, it's analog opium, it's from opium, then your heroin. So these compounds have got, what is the difference between morphine and heroin? Well, it is nothing but an acetylated form. The difference between morphine and an heroin, that is nothing but its OH group, its OH groups which are present in morphine gets acetylated. That increases the viability of the drug as well as. So this is a small biological modification that you did in the active compound, and the structure is similar to that of your pharmacologically active drug. Then they did the later modification that led to the synthesis of new NSAIDs, non-steroidal and opioid analgesics and all. So this is an example of structural activity relationship. From where? From a starting compound you get your products. Okay, and it is said that structures which has got similar compounds with with similar structure to the pharmacologically active drug are often to have same biological action. So you might have seen, but it might not be the same. Not every time that it will be the same. Sometimes if you see, okay, sometimes if you see in histamine, cimetidine, So we try to prepare antagonist by structural similarity so that they will block. So it is not that every time it will show an agonistic activity, there might be antagonist. They might block the structure. Okay. So this activity may be either similar to that of the original compound, but different in potency and unwanted side effects, or completely different to that of exhibited by your original compound. So what does its line say? This compound will have activity either similar to the original compound but difference in potency. Yeah, it might be more potent or less potent. Okay, it might have unwanted side effect or it might not have unwanted. So side effects might be there, side effects might not be there, or it might be completely different from your original compound, like you see in histamine. So analog of histamine is this thing, ranitidine, with structural similarity to the, but it antagonizes. So it might have completely different activity. It might have completely different activity. I just want completely different activity. Okay, so that is SAR. So SAR is nothing but it's a relationship between your structure and activity. And so what happens whenever you try to introduce as a new compound, it might have activity to the original compound with different potency or unwanted side effects, or completely different to that of exhibited by your original compound. So this might be the case. So the information may be used to develop. So the information that you get from this SAR study can be used to discover new compounds, drugs that have increased activity, or from the existing new drug with unwanted side effects. So you can just remove the activity which are not good, but compile the drugs which have got increased activity with or a different activity from the existing, and with fewer side effects. Now, what is this QSAR study? This was SAR. Now, QSAR study approaches attempts to identify and quantify. Identification is done through your SAR study, and through your QSAR study, you try to quantify. What do you mean by quantify? You try to have a mathematical figure. So you try to find the relation between the physiochemical properties of the drug and whether these activities affect the biological. So in QSAR study, by doing the structural modification, you try to find the relationship between a mathematical relationship between the physicochemical property of the drug with the biological activity. So this is an QSAR approach. In a QSAR approach, you try to attempt to identify and quantify. The word identify and quantify is very important. So it means you identify by structural activity what all modification and what is the effect, that is quantitative effect on the physicochemical properties of the drug and its relationship with the biological activity is related. So you try to quantify and identify the activity. So in QSAR is an attempt to establish a mathematical relations in a form of an equation. It is a mathematical equation relation in a form of equation between biological activity and measurable physicochemical properties. Very important. So you try to put an physicochemical properties, what is its effect on the biological activity through a mathematical equation. So what modification we did, what does it affect your physicochemical property, which physicochemical properties, and that you try to measure it using this QSAR study. So the relationship between the quantity of the drug that binds to the active site and its structure does relating to the biological. This relation is called as quantitative structural activity relationship. So what is quantitative activity? The relation between the quantity of the drug that binds to the active sites and its structure and does show a biological activity. So it is a relationship between your physicochemical properties and your biological activity. This is known as QSAR. This is known as QSAR. So in QSAR, you try, it's an attempt it's an approach. QSR approach attempts to identify and quantify the physicochemical properties of the drug and to see whether any of these properties are effect on biological activity by using a mathematical equation. I want everybody to write this particular definition. This comes for 2 marks. So what is QSR? QSR is nothing but an approach that attempts to identify. Identify means what are structural modification, and quantify what is the value for that, or quantify the physicochemical properties, how that physicochemical property is related to the, it affects the biological activity of the drug by using what? A mathematical equation. It's a mathematical equation which quantifies and identify the relationship between the physicochemical properties of a drug with the biological activity of the drug. So this is the definition of your QSAR. So what are the physicochemical properties that are measured? What are the physicochemical properties which are measured during this QSAR study? So let us give, first thing is hydrophobicity of the molecule of an whole. Remember, second is hydrophobicity of your substituent. Third is electronic parameter property of the substituent. Fourth is your steric property. There are something known as molar refractivity. There are many things which has been, but these are the 4 basic criteria for physicochemical properties. You can write molar refractivity and all. Okay. So these are the physicochemical properties that are measured using QSAR study. So I just want you to write this particular slide, which is important and which is asked in the exam. So QSAR approach is an approach that attempts to identify and quantify the physicochemical properties so to see whether any of these properties has any effect on the drug's biological activity using mathematical equation. So now, what is hydrophobicity? Yeah, what is hydrophobicity? Hydro means what? Water. Phobicity means what? Heat. So any compound that has lesser hydrophobicity, that has got lesser hydrophobicity means why this hydrophobicity increases? You know, your drug has to pass through cell membrane, and your cell membrane is hydrophobic in nature. So in order to drug to pass through the cell membrane, the drug which you are trying to synthesize or try to find, it should be hydrophobic in nature. Okay, it should be hydrophobic in, moreover it should pass, and moreover it is important for your receptor interaction. It is important for what? Receptor interaction. So you know there will be some hydrophobic pockets in your receptor with which it has to interact. If there is no hydrophobic region in your drug, then there will be no such interaction. So hydrophobicity is very important for your penetration into the cell membrane and also important for your receptor interaction. Now, what is hydrophobicity? Hydrophobicity of the drug is measured experimentally. Hydrophobicity of the drug is measured experimentally by testing the drug relative distribution in octanol water. So what is octanol? It's an organic phase. What is water? A liquid phase. So aqueous phase. So you try to find the hydrophobicity of the drug. You try to find the hydrophobicity of the drug by using the term called, which is the physicochemical property, partition coefficient, through which we try to relate the hydrophobicity character using the term partition coefficient. Using the term partition coefficient. And how do you calculate partition coefficient? You try to do an experiment. You try to put the drug inside an octanol water mixture. You put a drug in what? Octanol water system, and try to find the concentration of the drug in the octanol and water. And you try to take the ratio of your drug in your octanol and ratio of drug and concentration of the drug in your water. So what ratio you get, that is known as partition coefficient. So if the partition coefficient is high, what does it mean? The drug is more hydrophobic. That means it will penetrate better inside the liquid organic layer. Whereas if the partition coefficient is less, the drug concentration is more in water. So this character is very much important to be known. This particular character is very much important to be known. Through this partition coefficient value, you can come to know whether the drug is more water soluble or less water soluble. It is more hydrophobic or less hydrophobic. This you come to know by your partition coefficient. So that was hydrophobic. Now the substitution hydrophobicity constant pi. So there is now that was the hydrophobicity of the molecule. Now what is the, so I just want to tell you one thing. Okay, so if you want to check the hydrophobicity of the molecule as a whole, then it is given by the constant P, that is partition coefficient. Remember this terminology. So if you are talking about hydrophobicity of the molecule as a whole, then you consider it as P. Now let's go for the hydrophobicity of the substitution, and it is represented by the constant pi. So it is represented by the constant hydrophobicity constant pi. Okay, the partition coefficient can be calculated by knowing the contribution that various substitutions do. It is known as substitution hydrophobicity constant phi. The effect of the substituent on the hydrophobicity of the drug is known as hydrophobicity constant, that is represented by pi. So how do you measure it? To measure the substituent hydrophobicity, we compare it with that of your hydrogen. So you take a compound. So partition coefficient is measured exponent for a standard compound such as benzene. So you take a compound benzene. So benzene does not have any substitution. It has got all the carbon is connected to a hydrogen. So what do? You do a partition coefficient experiment with the standard compound and without the substitution. So that is your plain benzene, and then you put a substitution inside the ring and check the effect of that substitution on the hydrophobicity. Now hydrophobicity of constant of the substituent X is given by the equation pi X is equal to log of P, that is log of partition coefficient with the substitution X minus log of partition coefficient without the substitution. So this is given by the equation what? Pi X is given by the equation what? Log of concentration of the partition coefficient of the compound with the substitution minus log of concentration partition coefficient of the drug without the substitution. So when you get this difference, you'll come to know a pi X value that gives you the effect of the substituent on the hydrophobicity of the molecule. Okay, this is, so let us take. So what does this positive value represent? What does the positive value difference? The positive value difference represents that the substituent is more hydrophobic than hydrogen. The positive value of pi X represents that the compound is, the substituent is more hydrophobic than your hydrogen might. Okay, what is the negative value indicates? The negative value indicates that substituent is less hydrophobic than your hydrogen. Thus, so what do you come to know? If the positive value means the compound is more hydrophobic with that particular substituent, and the negative value pi X value represents that the compound is less hydrophobic. Now let us see an example. If you see the example, when plain benzene, the log P value is how much? 2.13. Plain value of this thing is 2.13. Now take chlorobenzene. Chlorobenzene, the pi X value is how much? 0.71. So when you subtract it, when you log P value is minus 2.64 is equal to 2.64. So what is the value of pi X when the substitution is 0.1? That is positive, means this particular chlorobenzene will be more hydrophobic. Now instead of chlorobenzene, you take benzamide. The log P value is 0.64. So when you try to do the subtract from P of benzene, you get a minus value. This shows that benzamide is less hydrophobic or more hydrophilic, in means its concentration is more in your water. So this, from this value you come to know whether the compound will be water soluble or the compound will be lipid soluble. Okay, this will help us to learn whether it will penetrate the cell membrane or it will interact. So this is how you try to use your value of P and pi. This is how you try to use the value of P and pi. So what is log P used? Log P tries to give the effect of the overall substituent on the molecule. So with this equation for anesthetics ether only, it is possible to predict the activity if log P does not work if the structure is very different. So ether has log P value of 0.9. Chloroform has got 1.97 and haloethane has 2.3. Anesthetic order increases in this order. What does this mean? As the hydrophobicity increases, the anesthetic property increases. Similarly, drug with log P values close to 2 should be able to enter the CNS. So if you want to enter the brain, so the log P value of the compound should be around 2. That's why barbiturates with the log P close to also would make sure that log P is much lower if it does not. So if you do not want any compound to go into the brain, then you have to see that the log P value should be less than that of P, so that it does not penetrate into the brain. So does not penetrate into the brain. So difference between P measures the drug's overall hydrophobicity and measures drug's transport, whereas pi measures the hydrophobicity of a specific region on the drug hydrophobic bonding to the receptor. So and the substitution it is represented by P. Okay, so this is about your hydrophobicity and the effect of substituents on hydrophobicity on the drug. So it represents the penetrability as well as the drug hydrophobicity bonding to the receptor. So this is the so that was P and pi. P represents the partition coefficient of the entire molecule as a whole, and pi represents the hydrophobic of a specific region in drug hydrophobicity bonding to the receptor. So pi represents the substituent hydrophobicity. Okay, how it will interact with the drug. Now let's go for the next constant. Next constant, physical constant, is your electronic effect or Hamlet's. It is known as polarizability effect of polarizability and drug ionization. Okay, that is known as what? Hamlet's constant. That is known as Hamlet's constant or electronic effect. That is known as what? Hamlet's constant or electronic effect. What is this electronic effect now? Electronic effect of various substances will clearly have an effect on drug ionization and polarity. Why this drug ionization and polarity is necessary? First and most important, for your ADME, for physicochemical property, that is ADME, that is pharmacokinetic property. How whether the drug will be absorbed, whether the drug will be metabolized, excreted. For a drug to be metabolized and excreted, it should be in an ionized form so that it can be removed from. So this can affect on your physicochemical property of absorption and excretion. So if the drug is not polarized or it does not get ionized, it will be in the body itself. It will not be excreted. And if it is not excreted, it will be toxic. Moreover, this electronic effect has also effect on the how strongly the drug will interact with the binding sites. Because if you see the receptors, drug receptor bindings, when you see a drug receptor binding, there will be some active ionic part. There will be hydrophobic region, there will be hydrophilic region. So hydrophilic region will have a charge in it. It will have a charge, so it will form an ionic interaction. It will form an ionic. For that, it should the molecule drug should be in an ionized form for the better interaction. It also plays an important role in the passing through the cell. If the drug is too highly polarized, then it cannot penetrate the cell membrane. So this particular factor, physicochemical factor, that is Hamlet's constant, plays an important role in drug penetration, drug interaction, metabolism, as well as distribution. So it affects your pharmacokinetic property as well as pharmacodynamic. Both the properties are affected by your Hammett's constant. So this is the effect of substitution on the drug ionization and polarity. Okay, how the drug dissociates once it comes into the situation. So Hammett's substitution constant is represented by sigma. It is represented by sigma. If you can see sigma value, okay, it is represent. It measures the. It's a this is a measure of electron withdrawing or electron donating ability of the substituent on an aromatic ring. So what do you come to know by Hammett's constant? You come to know the effect of your electron withdrawing group and electron donating group on the substitution on the aromatic ring. Now let's see what it is. Okay, so for this, what is the basic compound? What is your standard compound? Benzoic acid. What is the standard compound? Benzoic acid. So your standard in case of partition coefficient, it was benzene, whereas in case of your Hammett's constant, you take benzoic acid as a standard, and then you try to find the effect of the substituent on the dissociation of benzoic acid. So just look. So that is what you try to find out. That is what you try to find. Okay. So you take benzoic acid. It gets dissociated into what? Benzoic acid. Benzoic acid dissociates into so in case of this thing, if you see, you try to take, in case of Hammett's constant, your basic compound is your benzoic acid. How it dissociates into its benzoate ion. So it is represented by this dissociation constant Kh, that is dissociation constant. Okay, that is represented by concentration of your benzoate ion divided by concentration of your benzoic acid. How much of your benzoate ion is formed and from your benzoic acid? This will. So more the concentration of your benzoate ion, more will be the dissociation. Okay, more will be your dissociation. Now let's see the effect. Now let us see the effect of your electron withdrawing group. Let us see the effect of your electron withdrawing group. So let us say we are substituting X will be an substitution with the electron withdrawing group. Okay. So what happens? So when the carboxylate ion is formed, so this negative charge will be coming to the benzene ring. So this negative electron withdrawing group will stabilize the negative charge on the carboxylate ion. So if you see in that particular reaction, more of the product will be formed. If you see in the particular reaction, more of the arrow is more towards your product and less towards your. So electron withdrawing group will favor the formation of your benzoate ion. Will favor the formation and the charge will be toward more. So what happens? It is given by, so you take the dissociation constant of your benzoic acid and then you take that dissociation constant of substituted benzoic acid and you put it into the equation. Sigma X is equal to log of dissociation constant, that is represented log of kx, dissociation constant with the substituent x, minus log of dissociation constant of benzoic acid with and without an substituent. So if so, in this case, the sigma x value, if there is an electron withdrawing group in the structure, if there is an electron withdrawing group in the benzoic acid, it will have a positive value. That means it will ionize very well. It is a polar molecule. It will ionize. So this represent positive value, represent the substituent on benzoic acid will make it more polar and ionizable. Okay, so if there is an electron withdrawing substituent in the benzoic acid, it will be making it more polarizable and ionizable, and you get a positive sigma x. Okay, now let's go for the next. So some of the examples of electron withdrawing group are nitro, CF3, chloro, CF3, sulfonic acid. These are methane sulfonic. These are all electron withdrawing group. Now let us see what is the effect of your electron donating group. The effect of your electron donating. So when there is an electron donating group, it will increase the. So when there is an electron donating group, if you would have studied in acids and all before, it should be more towards this, okay, less towards the. So what happens when there is an electron donating group in the ring? So it will increase the electron density in your carboxylate ion. So the dissociation will not be easier. So it will, because there is more electrons in the benzene ring, formation of your benzoate ion will be difficult. So there will be lesser formation of your benzoate ion, thus your sigma x. So your forward reaction will be slow and your reverse reaction will. So you put log of kx by kh, that is equal to log of kx minus log of kh. So in this case, your dissociation of this will be low. The value of this dissociation constant with the substituent x will be low compared to that of your plain benzoic acid. So you get a negative value. So negative sigma x value represents that compound is non-ionizable or less ionizable and less polarizable. Okay, so lower value represent the compound is less ionizable and less polarizable. So positive value represents that compound is more ionizable and more polar, and negative value represents that compound is less ionizable and less. So how does this happen? Okay, let's say with an example. Okay, inductive effect. What is inductive effect? What do you mean by inductive effect? Electron donating or withdrawing group. Okay, that is known as any group which donates electron is known as positive inductive effect, and any group which withdraws electron from the system, it is known as negative inductive. So in case of electron withdrawing group, there is a negative inductive effect. So if you see the structure, now here we are trying to see what is the effect of nitro now on the group. So if you see if the nitro group, if there is a drug and if you attach the benzene ring with a nitro group, what happens? This particular nitro group, if it is at para position, so it will stabilize the negative charge on the ring by the nitro group. So that nitro group will take the electrons towards it and stabilize the ring. So there is both inductive as well as resonance stabilizer if there is at para position. Okay, so Sigma value depends upon the inductive effect and the resonance effect. Sigma value also depends on the position where the substitute, whether it is at meta, para or ortho. If it is at meta, para or ortho. Ortho is not considered much because of the steric influence. So usually you don't consider the ortho because of the steric influence. But your meta and para position plays an important role in your Hammett's constant. If you see the resonance, for that you have to know the resonance structure. I'll not go deep into that. Remember, sigma, that is ionization constant, electronic effect, depends upon both inductive as well as resonance effect. Sigma value depends on whether the substitution is at meta or para. So if it is at meta position, like if there is an electron withdrawing group at the meta position, it will not have any effect. It will only have an inductive effect, not an this thing resonance. But if the group is at the ortho and ortho para position, then it will show both inductive as well as resonance effect. So the electronic factors, there are two electronic factors, R that quantifies the resonance effect and F which quantifies the inductive effect. Those the constants which are involved in your electronic effects are sigma, that is your effect on a resonance effect, that is represented by F, R, and the inductive effect, that is represented by the word F. Okay, so this is, so what do you have to think? First, it depends upon what? Your resonance, dissociation of your benzoic acid. So Hammett's equation constant depends upon your dissociation of your benzoic, how well it dissociates. So in presence of an electron withdrawing group, we will have a positive sigma value, and in case of an electron donating group, it will have a negative. Why? Because positive group will stabilizes the negative carboxylate ion, and it is easy to give away the proton to get ionized. Whereas in case of electron donating group, it increases the electron density in the ring. It will increase the electron density, and it is difficult to dissociate. Why? Because the increase in the electron density in the carboxylate group, so it finds difficult to dissociate into your carboxylate ion. So the value will be 9. And moreover, it also depends upon the position of your group. If it is whether it is ortho or para or meta. In case of meta, only inductive effect is more prominent, whereas in para position you get both inductive as well as resonance effect. Okay. Now let's go for the steric effect. Okay, let's go for the steric effect. Let's go for what? Steric. What is steric? Steric is nothing but the bulk. It becomes the bulk, size, and shape of the drug. So steric effect considers the bulk, shape, and size of the drug, which will influence usually on the approach of the drug. How will it interact with the binding site? So steric factor. The steric factor will always influence the how the drug will bind to the receptor. If the drug is too bulky, it will not get inside the receptor and there will be no effect. If it is bulky also, so there will be, it will not come out. So it will block the receptor. So it will represent whether the drug is an agonist, antagonist. All these type of things will come to know by the steric factor. All this you will come to know by the steric factor. The bulky substituent may act as a shield and hinder the ideal interaction between the drug and the binding site. They will act as a, so they will not allow the drug to bind to the receptor or the binding site. The bulky, but there is one more character. The bulky substituent may also help to orient the drug properly to the maximum binding. So if there is free to rotate, they will rotate in such a way that they will assist in fixing your drug to properly so that there is maximum interaction and activity. So both the things can happen. Okay, either they will block or they'll try to orient. Because of this bulkiness, they will orient it such a way that there is maximum interaction and binding with the receptor as well as your increase in active. So this is how the steric effect will have. So this is calculated by which factor? So Taft steric factor is calculated by Taft's steric factor, and it is represented by ES. So what is it represented? It is represented by ES. Okay. So what do you measure? It is measured by comparing the rate of hydrolysis of the substituted aliphatic ester against the standard ester under acetic. So here we are considering hydrolysis of an ester. In case of your what do you say, electronic effect, you try the dissociation constant. Here we are trying to find the effect of substituent on the hydrolysis of the ester, okay, under acidic condition. Remember, it is hydrolysis effect on rate of hydrolysis of a substituted aliphatic ester against the standard ester under acidic condition. So it is given by ES is equal to Kx, represents the effect of hydrolysis on the substituted ester, and minus K hydrolysis constant of an unsubstituted aliphatic ester. Okay, this is what you come to know. You put an bulky group, and what is the effect on the hydrolysis substituent on the hydrolysis of the, but there is one limitation. It is limited to substituent which interacts directly with the tetrahedral transition interaction of the reaction. So when there is an hydrolysis, there is a tetrahedral. So that it shows the effect, whether it will block the hydrolysis and all, but does not consider but no effect on your resonance and hydrogen bonding is considered. That is the side effect of this thing. That is a limitation of your this particular disadvantage. ES1 measures the intramolecular steric effect, but drug interact with target site in intermolecular process. So it does not tell you the intermolecular within the drug. It only explains the intramolecular steric effect. What is the effect of the substituent on that? But it does not tell how it will, what is the effect on the drug binding to the receptor. So that is not. So that is the limitations of your Taft's constant. That is Taft's steric factor, and it is represented by hydrolysis of an aliphatic ester and its substituted ester. You come to know by the Taft's. Now, next criteria is polarizability. Okay, polarizability is determined by the molar refractivity. Okay, polarizability is represented by the constant molar refractivity. Molar refractivity is the measure of both volume of the compound, means how much it is distributed and how much it is how it is distributed in the surrounding, in the space, drug in the environment, as well as how it is polarized. It measures both the volume as well as the polarizability, and it is defined by n square minus 1 into molecular divided by n square plus 2 divided by your, what is this P? Density of the compound. N is your refractive index of the compound. M is the relative mass or the molecular weight of the relative mass of the compound, and Z is the density. So M by P is the term to measure the molar volume. It is used to determine the molar volume. So mass upon density is the volume, you know, mass divided by density is the volume. So through this we know what is the volume of your compound. Through your refractive index you will come to know the molar your ionizable property of the drug. And if you put this equation value, if you put the value in the equation, you'll come to know the polarity of the molar refractivity and polarizability of. And the positive sign of molar refractivity in the QSR equation explains that substitution binds to the polar surface, and negative value indicates the steric hindrance at the binding. Did you get this, everybody? So if it is positive value, means it is polarizable and it will bind to the polar, and if it is a negative value, it means it shows that the molecule is bulkier, huge volume, and it shows a steric hindrance at the binding. This is your example of molar. That is a final one, that is polarizability character, that is represented by molar refractivity. Molar refractivity represents the charge, polarizability, as well as the molecular mass of the compound. So if it is a positive value, means the compound is polarized and it shows up binds with the polar surface, whereas negative value indicates the steric hindrance at the binding site. So your molar polarity as your Taft equations can be related to determine the effect. Okay. Now this is Verloop's equation. This is a software that used to gives the dimension of the substitution from the standard bond angle. So van der Waals radii, bond length, possible conformation for the substitution can be used. So with this particular software, that is Verloop steric parameter, that can be calculated using a software known as Sterimon. It gives the dimension of the substitution from the standard bond angle van der Waals. So if you have got a standard compound, you put a substituent. So what will be the changes in that bond angle? Your van der Waals radius. Van der Waals radius is nothing but your intermolecular interactions, and possible conformation of the substitution can be understood with substitution and without. So carboxylic acid substituent in the benzene, what will be the orientation of the compound? What will be the interaction? What will be the bond angle of the compound? Everything will be calculated by this particular software. So Verloop steric interaction, what is the effect of the substituent on the ring? Okay, basic carbon dioxide and carboxylic acid, and what happens when you substitute it with the benzoic acid. So this is what you come to know by Verloop steric effect. So this was still the study. Now let's go for Hans equation. Okay, till now we were studying only about a particular physicochemical properties. What is the effect of a particular on the drug? So that will not give us an entire idea now, because there are many factors. Some drugs will have a high bulk, so polarizability and Taft's equation. Some drugs will be more polar, so your hydrogen, your electronic effect will be more. So all the parameters should be calculated. No? All the physicochemical properties have to be included. Initially they did what? Only 1, 1, 1, 1. But later on Hans found out an equation where he related various physicochemical properties with the biological activity, and it put it in one equation. So what did Hans do? He took out all the physicochemical properties of the drug and tried to put it in one equation, and that was known as Hans equation. So he included log P, electronic effect, steric effect in a single equation and try to relate it with the biological activity. So start with then simple equation, elaborate with more structure or synthesize. So what will be the effect of different substitution can be, and it usually gives an parabolic typical equation for a wide range of log P is parabolic. So if you see a parabolic curve in case of your partition coefficient. So you give initial equation that log C depends upon what? Your concentration of your drug, partition coefficient of drug, then another square of, it depends upon your Hammett's constant. It depends upon your Hammett's constant, steric effect, and this is a, so he gave this particular equation. So it depends upon both. Parabolic means both on higher substitution and lower substitution, both the things he considered in this particular equation. Okay, so this was the typical equation where he considered all the physicochemical properties and tried to put it in one equation and related to the biological effect. So this was a Craig's plot. That was Hans equation. Now let's go for the Craig plot. So in this Craig's plot, you can see you show a negative and Hans equation and Hammett's constant, positive, and try to relate it with the sigma. That is your partition coefficient along with your electronic effect. So which all substitution will from this they plotted the graph and they try to find which portion will. So if you want to have a more polar molecule and less polar, which quadrant, what selection we have to do. So this Craig will show the effect of two physicochemical properties and the of the substituent on the. So we can select which one. If you want a more polar compound, which substitution should be taken. So through this Craig plot, they came to know which all substitution we have to pick it up in a molecule to have a desired physicochemical property and biological. So the Craig property compares the physicochemical properties of various substituent, and through this Craig's plot we can pick which particular substituent we want in our drug depending upon the content. If you want a more polar drug, we will go to a positive sigma value that is on top, and along with that, if you want a less along with that hydrophobicity also, then we will go towards the right hand side across the minus pi. So this is how you try to calculate the find the optimum substituents of the drug through using Craig plot. So see, allows an easy identify suitable substitution. So through this Craig plot, we can easily identify which substitutions can be put into the QSAR with relevant properties. Okay, choose the substitution from each quadrant to ensure orthogonality. So you see perpendicular to each other, this and this. If you can see both the things, one is your polarizability, or sorry, your electronic effect, and another is your hydrophobicity. Both things can be seen orthogonally. Okay, this much and this. So this is what is your hydrophobicity that you require, and this is what is your electronic effect that is if required in your particle. What you get through that particular substituent can be given at a single, and we can choose different substitution from this with their properties according to the Craig's plot. So what is top-list method? What is this top? This approach is completely non-mathematic and non-statistical and does not need any computational data. The top-list scheme is a flow diagram that is in a series of direct the medical chemistry to produce series of some of which have greater activity than the lead compound used to start with the tree. So there are two top-list schemes for aromatic substitution and aliphatic side chain substitution. Application this method can be used if synthetic may be difficult only if few structures can be made. So this is a this thing. So from this particular thing, they try to just find the method. This is only an activity-based relationship. Top-list method is an activity-based relationship that we get. So next part is your computer-aided drug design. Next part is your what is this computer-aided drug design? That is in silico design of the drug, where you design a drug in a computer. You have got an what you say receptor or a target. You got a target and you got a ligand. Ligand is the drug and your target is your receptor or anything protein in your body. So in a computer aided drug, we should have an ligand, that is your drug, and your target. So you should know the configuration of the drug, everything. You should have a crystal structure of the drug, which is available in the drug protein database or a drug database. You will get the structure of your protein. You will get the structure of your protein. And what you do, you try to simulate it, the drug. You try to fix the drug into the receptor or the target and try to find the effect. So this is a computational method. This is an in silico computational method. Okay, computer-aided drug design. Prior to your, instead of designing your compound in your lab, you are designing your compound in your computer and try to find its interaction. So whichever compound shows a better interaction, that will be selected and synthesized. So this is very important. So if the compound, it is freely rotating or it is depending upon its configuration, it is different conformation, this will be helpful. Computer-aided drug design will help you to identify the target disease. Okay, it is studying the new compound, detect molecular base for the this thing. So through the computation, we know which particular amino acid which has changed, which is causing that particular disease. So we have got an amino acid sequence of a drug, of a receptor. So what is that modification that has occurred can be understood by gene mapping and all. So through this computation, they'll map the genes, see whether how the particular gene has modified and which is giving an disease condition. So this can be studied by computer-aided drug design. So it is also used for testing the drug. How do you, as I said, you have a drug and you have got a receptor, disease state. So how does the drug block that disease can be studied using computation, and this will prevent the time. So before you do a actual synthesis, you try to see whether these compounds are active. So the computer-based drug design helps the chemist or a medicinal chemist to design a drug better way and try to evaluate its physicochemical property before it is done. So you get an idea of the drug compound before you synthesize using a computer-based drug design. Okay, so one of the approach is molecular docking. So what is this molecular docking? So docking means you put something over other, you dock and this thing anchor on the base. So you try to fix it. So what is molecular docking? It's a molecular graphics and computational technique used to build, display, manipulate, stimulate, analyze the molecular structure and calculate the properties of these structures. So they try to have an computational technique we build a manual. So they have an structure of the compound target, they decide to effect and how well it is bound. So using a computational method. So if you see what I've written, binding interaction between a small molecule, that is ligand. So molecule drug is also called a ligand, and an enzyme protein may result in activation and inhibition of enzyme. Yes, that you know. So when a drug binds to an enzyme or a receptor, so either it may activate the receptor or inactivate. If the protein is a receptor, binding can result in agonism and antagonism. Yeah. So similarly, by binding of a drug in a particular conformation, it might show an agonistic effect or an antagonistic. This is studied by your molecular docking. So you'll come when you do a docking, you come to know how it binds, which position it binds, and what is the effect, whether it is showing an antagonist and agonistic, whether it is inhibiting or activating the enzyme. Molecular docking is like lock and key model. It is just lock and you got a target, which is your lock, and you got a target. You got a drug, which is a ligand, which is a key. So you either you can lock your key, lock your what you say with your key, or you can open it. So it either it show agonistic or an antagonistic effect. So this is in other way, protein and ligand will change the conformation to find the best fit, and this is known as induction fit model. So this is an example of how the drug binds. If you can see a three-dimensional structure inside that, and how your drug binds to your specific sites in your receptor, that is your protein receptor. And this is how the lock and key model is explained. It will have a specific conformation where with which it will bind. Okay, so this is your lock and key model of molecular modeling. Okay, where your protein will be there, your compound ligand will come as a key, bind to it, either it will lock the protein or unlock the protein. That will determine the active, whether it will show an agonistic or antagonistic effect, whether it will show an agonistic or